Right, well, let's bring in Dan Perry. He is an Israeli political analyst and the former chief editor of the Associated Press in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. And he joins us now from Tel Aviv. Dan, can this border peace deliver for both Palestinians and Israelis? Do you have any optimism from it?
As I've been saying all day, my optimism is entirely hinged on a question of whether Hamas can be compelled to disarm as a militia in Gaza. I think if that happens, then yeah, I am optimistic. Not because the border peace as a construct makes any sense in the grand scheme of things as a replacement to the UN that is largely a boondoggle for Mr. Trump, but because in this particular case, it is the vehicle that, as we see today in Washington, has brought forth something of a consensus among the entire Arab world and even countries that aren't there because of their complications with the specific issues to do with the war of peace support this. This consensus, I think, is prepared to invest large sums of money in the rebuilding of Gaza and to compel Israel to get out of its own way, basically, and accept some version of the PA, because that is what the technocratic government is, running Gaza, in exchange for the removal of Hamas, which was a goal that Israel pursued with some brutality, but also a goal that was supported by most of the world. And so, as a device for bringing about, for finessing an end to this horror that we've seen in Gaza, it might just work, but only if it can also bring about the disarming of Hamas in Gaza. That is the condition, that is the sine qua non, that is the be-all and end-all.
Let's bring in Sultan Barakati, Professor of Public Policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University. Now, same question to you. Do you have any optimism from this? But, you know, sometimes your optimism can be turned into pessimism when you see Ali Shaath, the Chief Commissioner of the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, who's there amongst all the other leaders on that board of peace, when he's not even got the sign Palestine in front of him.
Well, that tells you all as to where this is heading. It's not about the Palestinians, it's not about Gaza, it's not about justice, it's not about restoring rights to the Palestinians, or even really guaranteeing long-term peace for Israel. This is about now laundering the reputation of Israel after the genocide, trying to get them off the hook in the international circles. Trump and the Israelis in particular believe that the United Nations over the last 80 years produced a lot of legislation and a lot of resolutions on the Palestinian issue. All of that can be now ignored, and we will all run and for some new composition, very detached from reality, something that very theatrical. I mean, the whole thing is really amazing that it even allowed to get to this far, in the hope that Trump will be delivering peace. Now, Trump has been able to deliver ceasefire because he used power against Netanyahu. He pressured Netanyahu at that stage, and he delivered this. But to deliver peace, he has to do the same with Israel long term. They've got to accept that occupation has got to come to an end. Then Hamas has no reason to fight back. Hamas has no reason to recruit people. Even if they were to disarm Hamas today, something else will come up. Already militias have been created in Gaza, some with the support of the Israelis, some are self-initiated because of the possibilities that are now flooding into the country. And they will take up the struggle and they will move on. So it's not really the way to handle the situation. We have to address the core issue, the underlying causes of all this, before we move into the cosmetics of the reconstruction.
Dan, you had a recent op-ed, I believe. You said if Trump is such a showman, let him finally put on a useful show. What would be that useful show?
Well, that goes back to my notion that the Board of Peace can actually do something in the Gaza context, regardless of its overall absurdity. And the show I was talking about there was that at an event like this, and I'd rather see it happening, let's say, on the Egyptian side of Rafah or somewhere very close to a Palestinian border, they need to put on the table probably much more than $7 billion, because if you just do the math, even to build 400,000 houses, I think that what they have will suffice if the houses cost $20,000. You need probably 10 times that figure to even begin to think about rebuilding Gaza, and they need to put that money on the table. And they need to also bring Israel to the point where it more clearly commits itself to a two-state solution. And it needs to become very clear to the Palestinians and to skeptics like Dr. Barakat that this is real. That's the show they need to put on. I hope it's not just a show, but a convincing show that represents a real reality. And then to say that you can have these things or have nothing. And it all depends on whether you find a way to implement what Ali Shah said, which is one law, one authority, one weapon. This idea that has somehow gained currency across the Arab world, that it's okay to have these militias, and they do what they do, and they often undermine countries or countries in waiting, like Palestine, is preposterous. And the Palestinians, as a body politic, have to understand this, and I think they do, because if you listen to the PA, and to its proxy in Gaza, which is at this point Shah and the technocratic government, you see they're demanding this, but not enough pressure is being put on Hamas. And therefore, I think it really is incumbent on countries that have a degree of leverage over Hamas, suasion over Hamas, and that includes Qatar, that includes Egypt and Turkey, and a few others, to make it very clear and to put the squeeze on Hamas in a manner that no squeeze has ever been put. Because it's true that jihadist groups don't generally agree to give up their arms. And the excuses are legion. We hear talk about how they have to resist and someone's going to resist. Nonsense. It really is nonsense. And I have a great respect for Dr. Barakat. No, we're talking here about a process that is meant to lead to this. And a very problematic Israeli government led by Netanyahu has been dragged along barely, and with any luck, they'll be gone by the end of this year because Israel's facing elections.
Sultan Barakat, thank you so much. And Dan Perry also, thank you so much as well.